A very special guest with us today who has very kindly offered his time. But before I get to the introductions, you may or you may not be aware that we are currently involved in a world record attempt. We are flying a flight simulator, which is not ours yet, and we're trying to raise money to fly this, to operate this simulator, purchase and operate this simulator for the next 5 years. We started on Friday at 11 AM. We're currently somewhere over Indonesia, and we should finish back at Blackbush on Sunday at around about lunchtime. So without further ado, I'm going to make my introductions, and then I'm going to just give you a bit of a few words about how we're going to operate this press conference. So first of all, to my right, we have Mike Miller-Smith, who's the Chief Executive of the charity. We have myself, John Windover, the Chairman. To my left, we have Dave Rawlins, one of our members, one of our wounded servicemen who is now flying with Aerobility. To the left of Dave Rawlins, it's my pleasure to introduce Buzz Aldrin. And then we have Christina, Buzz Aldrin's Mission Director. So, what I would invite is one question at a time by raising your hand, and we'll last this session for around about 20 minutes. And Dee, wherever you are, Dee, will take the microphone over to you. And then bring it back.
Okay. Great, so who's got the first question? Do we have any questions? Okay, there you go.
Philip Whiteman, Pilot Magazine. Buzz, I just wondered what it was that particularly motivated you to come and fly this leg with Aerobility. And perhaps if I'm allowed a second question, you know, what you've actually got out of it, how you enjoyed it.
Well, they offered me $1 million when I turned them down. But I willingly fit this into my schedule between the 20th anniversary of the Jules Verne Society later this week and an activity up in Birmingham. And threw in a quick visit to Stephen Hawking so I can get a blurb for my National Geographic book. And I talked so much about the first question I forgot the second one.
How have you found the experience? And you know,
it's a lot of fun flying this simulator, even though I'm used to a little bit faster speeds at 110 knots.
Welcome back to GA.
But it requires skill, and it requires integrating what you're seeing out the windows with what the instruments read, and then depending on your background, how you are able to improve during the flight time. When you get into the air, you're a little shaky, as I am, and a little over controlling and not paying attention where you ought to be paying attention. But that begins to sharpen up, and it's just the kind of thing that that folks like our military participants in this conflict that we seem to be eternally involved in. It's just a thing that is needed to build a confidence in your abilities to begin to deal with whatever your handicaps, disabilities are, so that you can reestablish a comfortable level dealing with where you stand and what you have to deal with. Nobody's perfect. And I've had to deal with a number of disabilities that get ornery, but not really seriously detrimental, except when I try to brush my hair back.
Excellent. So, Aerospace International, the next question.
Yeah, Tim Robinson from the Royal Aeronautical Society. Dr. Aldrin, how did the simulator compare to the Lunar Module simulator that you trained in for Apollo? And did they make sure that you'd only got 10 seconds of fuel left to land it?
I never did see the fuel gauge. And it seemed as though when we took off, maybe there was a step like raising the landing gear. But it's a fixed gear, you don't raise it. I forgot about the flaps too. I was asked that question about the similarity between the simulators here and the Lunar Module, and a pilot could make a comparison, and you note the major differences. You sit down on the seat in the simulator, we stand up in the Lunar Module because you're simulating zero gravity or during power descent, a slight accelerating and pushing you down toward the floor. The control system is a 3-axis roll, pitch, and yaw in one hand. Usually you don't even touch the controller because the computer is doing all of that for you based upon the inputs that you put into it and that the control center has put into the computer. The commanders of the flights decided that to land successfully on an unpredictable surface, they didn't want to wait until 10 feet above the ground to take over and make a smooth transition from computer-directed to manual flight. So 500 feet was the decision to begin to take over manual control, and it really, I don't want to get too technical, but you have a rate command attitude hold, which means you move the hand controller this way, or whatever you do, you're commanding a rate of change of the attitude in degrees per second, and you let go and you're commanding 0, so you're telling it hold this attitude. That's a little bit different than an airplane, because the airplane will tend to kind of keep wandering off. It won't attitude hold, and you are not really commanding a rate. So we've made some improvements, thanks to MIT and a few other companies, in giving a really good transition from computer-controlled flight to manual computer-assisted flight.
Great. Any
Got
other
the
questions?
question again.
Fantastic. Any other questions?
Are you still an active pilot? And if so, what do you fly?
Well, I don't know why the word bathtub came into mind when you said, where do I fly? I have a Volvo, but it, the top comes up and goes, but it doesn't leave the ground, hopefully.
You drive it like it will.
You have to practice formation flying.
You guys, you were an active pilot.
No, I'm not an active pilot. Los Angeles is a bit busy area, and you really have to keep up on all the rules and regulations and changes. Flying an airplane is too expensive between Los Angeles and Houston and Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. So I find it much more convenient to be served by sweet young ladies in my trip and see a movie or read a book or learn how to get to Mars.
Yeah.
Buzz, what was the most recent aircraft you were on, and did you enjoy the experience?
Yeah. why don't you let me fly the airplane on the way back, and then I can better answer your question. You know, after I left NASA, I was in command of the test pilot school, and one of the things we did is to visit the test centers or test schools in Europe. The Empire Test Pilot School, the French Test Pilot School, the Italian Test Center, and the German Test Center. In the Italian Test Center, they said, in honor of our distinguished commander of the U.S. Air Force Test Pilot School, we're going to offer you a solo flight in this G91. It's a fighter bomber type, one seat. So he says, we're going to let you get in our single seat fighter. I go, wow, I got students here. I'm going to fly this in front of them. So I got the handbook out and began studying it. Then a staff car drove me to an appointment I had with Gina Lola Brigida. And the next day I flew the airplane.
Yeah, Buzz, you're an aviation and space hero to many people around the world. But who was your aviation hero when you sort of started out? Did you have one?
Probably quite a few, because I grew up as a teenager during World War II, and I knew the number of aviators that my father knew, and he was the same age as General Jimmy Doolittle, who bombed Tokyo when I was 11 years old. So he was sort of a hero to me, and later on in life, why he and I were, thanks to him, were on the board of directors of Mutual of Omaha, and I used to tell Jimmy, I said, you know, our rocket was longer than your takeoff roll on the carrier. But then there were other people like
So I was just wondering if you've given any thoughts about the contribution that Aerobility is making to aviation in general. I mean, an organisation, you've been here a few hours now. Do you have any thoughts on Aerobility?
well, as more and more people understand the motives, they begin to see how the skills of flying airplanes can be backed up into the simulator, and those skills can be used as a upgrading of a person's capabilities to increase their level of confidence and pleasure in their ability to learn how to do things that are reasonably difficult in a simulator, and then if they're able to, hopefully they'll get in an airplane and demonstrate to whoever's flying with them, who owns the airplane, that they're safe enough, and they'll get to see that, yeah, they're being trusted to fly an airplane, and that's a big confidence builder for somebody who's dealing with some things that get frustrating from time to time.
We have a final question.
Yeah, you've been a passionate advocate for Mars exploration, of further space exploration. So my question would be, when do you think we'll see a human footprint on Mars, and which nation might that be?
I've given an awful lot of thought to Mars when I found that trying to improve how we get to and from the moon probably wasn't going to help landing maneuvers, we already know how to do that quite well. But it could help adventure travel by flying past the moon, either the front side, which you'd like to do, if we're familiar with that, or the very rugged backside. But that's not satisfying a position of U.S. leadership. And I believe that once a nation has developed a particular talent that they excel in, that they shouldn't allow that to fade away. And I think that 45 years later, for the United States to say we're going to go back and land some of our NASA astronauts on the moon is hardly fitting the 43 years since we made 6 out of 7 successful landings on the moon. So I think there are many things that we can challenge ourselves to do in the lunar environment that can help other nations, especially if we assert our talents and assert our capabilities as enabling us to be the leaders of what happens at the moon. And we can certainly fulfill a lot of needs of other nations, China, India, Japan. If we sort of back off and don't say anything, they're going to assume leadership of what they're doing. And that kind of relegates us to and also run as far as the moon goes. So the resources that we save by either leadership or fumbling and doing nothing, we can take those resources and apply them to a well-ordered expanding capability outward in space to the point where the next obvious objective that everyone associated with space has acknowledged is human landings on the planet Mars. And when you begin to look at that, it's a very difficult task to get there and an even more difficult task to come back. And you'd like not to go there, come back and say, hey, we just did that, let's do it again. And you go there and come back again. About that time, the Senate is going to say, hey, wait a minute, we need that money for other things, and all the efforts of developing the capability to go to Mars will be kind of down the tubes, unless you commit to permanence. Now, what does permanence really mean? It means you're establishing a human outpost, and you'd like to maintain it. At 6 people? No, hardly. Let's get 6 people there as frequently as we can, which is a little over 2 years. And if you want to build up to, let's say, 60 people, it takes 21 years. And that's a long time for people who are trying to accomplish specific objectives for humans occupying Mars. Now, some of those are scientific. It's a little difficult for me to imagine something on Mars that we're going to send back to Earth that's going to earn a profit. We may make movies and send them back. We can do that with television cameras, probably. Maybe we can do it with robots. The overriding reason is for the nation to develop a sense of accomplishment in the world community of other nations. And I guess these days, when I grew up, I considered where I lived to be an exceptionally fortunate location. And I think most of us in the Western world grew up with similar feelings of identification to what country we were a part of. And you'd like to see progress moving in a positive direction. And we've seen that, and I was a part of it, and I want to see it rejuvenated and happen again. And I really think that the time period from the Wright brothers flying in 1903, until our landing at Tranquility Base, 1969, is 66 years. An awful lot happened during that time. Let's take that same time period and look into the future from 1969, and we get to 2035, which is an ambitious, yet I think doable time period to establish with confidence a very satisfying occupation capability on the planet Mars. Volunteers?
Great, I think that's it now because we need to go back into the stimulus challenge. So thank you very much, guys. That's it now.
Guys, thank you very much.